A mother's touch is meant to soothe, a mother's arms meant to protect. But on a summer morning in June 2001 in Houston, Texas, a mother's hands became instruments of destruction. 5 children, all under the age of 7. A bathtub filled with water. A quiet suburban home that became a house of nightmares. When Andrea Yates dialed 911, her voice was eerily calm. She didn't beg for help. She didn't plead for forgiveness. She simply confessed, "I just killed my kids." The world was stunned. The case was one of the most horrifying in modern history, but it also raised disturbing questions about motherhood, mental illness, and responsibility. Was Andrea Yates a calculating monster, or a mother lost to madness? This is the chilling story of Andrea Yates, one of the most evil mothers in history. It was just after 9 a.m. when Rusty Yates, Andrea's husband, left for work. He kissed his wife goodbye, believing she was stable enough to care for their 5 children. The Yates household was full that morning. Noah, 7 years old, a curious, kind-hearted boy. John, 5 years old. Paul, 3 years old. Luke, 2 years old. Mary, the youngest, just 6 months old. Not long after Rusty drove away, Andrea filled the bathtub with water. She later told investigators that she believed Satan was inside her, and that the only way to save her children's souls from eternal damnation was to take their lives while they were still innocent. Andrea began with her sons. She led John, Paul, and Luke into the bathroom one at a time. She held each child under the water until they stopped moving. Then she carried their bodies into the master bedroom and laid them on the bed side by side. Next, she drowned baby Mary, leaving her tiny body floating in the water. Her last child was Noah, the oldest. When he saw Mary in the tub, he realized what was happening and tried to run. Andrea chased him through the house, dragged him back, and forced him under the water. When it was over, she placed Mary in Noah's arms on the bed. Then she picked up the phone, dialed 911, and confessed. Andrea Pia Kennedy was born in 1964 in Houston, Texas. She was the youngest of 5 children. Friends and teachers described her as quiet but smart. She was her high school valedictorian, captain of the swim team, and voted most likely to succeed. After graduation, Andrea trained as a nurse. She was shy and socially awkward, but caring by nature. In 1989, at age 25, she met Russell "Rusty" Yates. They quickly began a relationship, bonding over their shared Christian faith. Rusty admired Andrea's quiet devotion, and Andrea saw Rusty as strong and dependable. They married in 1993, but Andrea's life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. From the beginning, Rusty and Andrea believed in having a large family. Influenced by a traveling preacher named Michael Warrenecki, they believed children were gifts from God, and that a woman's duty was to be a mother and caretaker. In quick succession, Andrea gave birth to Noah in 1994, John in 1995, Paul in 1997, and Luke in 1999. But with each pregnancy, Andrea's mental health began to unravel. She suffered from severe postpartum depression after Luke's birth. In 1999, she attempted to take her own life by overdosing on medication. She was hospitalized and diagnosed with postpartum psychosis, an extremely rare but severe condition marked by hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia. Doctors warned the couple, Andrea should not have more children, but in 2000 she became pregnant again. Their 5th child, Mary, was born in November. Almost immediately, Andrea's condition worsened. She became withdrawn, stopped eating, and scratched bald patches into her scalp. She mutilated herself. She confessed to having visions of stabbing her children. At one point, she held a knife to her own throat. Despite repeated hospitalizations, Rusty continued to insist that prayer, faith, and family would heal Andrea. Against medical advice, he refused to limit the size of their family or consider permanent contraception. The pressure on Andrea grew unbearable. In March 2001, Andrea had a complete breakdown. She was hospitalized for weeks and prescribed antipsychotic medication. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Mohammed Saeed, warned that she was at high risk of harming herself or her children if left unsupervised. Andrea's mother also urged Rusty never to leave her alone with the kids. But on the morning of June 20th, 2001, Rusty did exactly that. Believing Andrea was stable, he left for work, leaving her alone with 5 children. Within an hour, all 5 were gone. When police arrived, Andrea did not resist. She confessed immediately, explaining that she had drowned her children to save them from eternal damnation. The horror of the crime shocked even seasoned officers. Rusty was devastated. When told what had happened, he collapsed in grief. But he also defended Andrea, insisting she had been sick and that the medical system had failed her. The media, however, was less sympathetic. Headlines branded Andrea Yates as a monster mom, one of the most evil mothers in American history. Andrea was charged with 5 counts of capital murder. Prosecutors sought the death penalty. Her defense argued insanity. They presented medical records, hospitalizations, and expert testimony showing that Andrea was in the grip of postpartum psychosis. But the prosecution argued she was fully aware of what she was doing. They pointed to her decision to wait until Rusty left for work, her systematic method of drowning the children, and her attempt to arrange their bodies afterward. The trial divided the nation. Some saw Andrea as a cold-blooded killer. Others saw her as a tragic figure abandoned by her husband and doctors. In March 2002, the jury rejected the insanity defense. Andrea Yates was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison. But the story didn't end there. In 2005, it was discovered that a prosecution witness had provided false testimony. Andrea's conviction was overturned. In 2006, she was retried. This time, the defense focused heavily on her psychosis. Experts testified that Andrea truly believed killing her children was the only way to save them from hell. The jury agreed. Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed to a mental health facility, where she remains to this day. Today, Andrea Yates lives at Kerrville State Hospital in Texas. Reports say she spends her time reading the Bible, attending therapy, and painting. She has never sought release. Those close to her say she believes her confinement is just. Rusty divorced Andrea in 2005. He later remarried and had another child, though he has continued to say he does not hate Andrea. Instead, he blames the failures of the medical system and his own decisions for what happened. Andrea Yates's case remains one of the most studied examples of postpartum psychosis. Postpartum psychosis is extremely rare, affecting only 1 to 2 women out of every 1,000 births. But when it occurs, it can be devastating. Symptoms include hallucinations, paranoia, and delusions. Andrea believed she was possessed by Satan. She believed her children were doomed to eternal damnation. And in her psychotic state, she believed that drowning them was an act of mercy. But despite this, society still sees her as one of the most evil mothers in history. Because no matter the illness, the outcome was the same. 5 innocent children, gone. The story of Andrea Yates forces us to confront some of the most uncomfortable questions in true crime. How do we balance mental illness with accountability? Where does responsibility lie? With the individual, the family, or the system that failed them? And most haunting of all, can a mother who takes the lives of her own children ever be remembered as anything but evil? The faces of Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary remain frozen in time. Innocent lives cut short, remembered only through the lens of tragedy. Andrea Yates will forever be remembered not just as a mother, but as one of the most evil mothers in history. This was the story of Andrea Yates, a case that still shocks and divides to this day. If you found this deep dive compelling, subscribe to True Crime Obscura. Because in this series we uncover the most evil mothers in history and the chilling psychology behind their crimes. And remember, sometimes the darkest monsters are not strangers in the night, they're the ones who live inside the home.